This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Big push. The White House hits the ground running to sell the Republican tax reform plan.
Emergency aid, it is making its way to Puerto Rico, but once it's there, it sits, unable to get where it needs to go.
New apology. Equifax makes a peace offering to consumers, but retirees need to take a few extra steps in the wake of the massive breach. Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Thursday, September 28th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Herrera.
And I'm Bill Griffith in for Tyler Matheson. Tonight I'm coming to you this evening from the New York Stock Exchange. And it was here today that the S&P 500 closed at another new record high. And while it may not be as well known as the Dow Industrials, it is considered more representative of the whole market since it is made up of 500 companies as compared to the Dow's 30. Small cap stocks also hit all-time highs today, as did a leading indicator of the economy that would be the Dow Transportation Average. When all was said and done, the Dow Industrials gained 40 points, closed at 22,381. The Nasdaq was up a fraction, and the S&P 500 rose 3, enough for that new all-time high. Sue?
And Bill, in Washington, Republicans were out in force selling their tax plan, but there was some pushback. Ilan Mui is in our nation's capital.
The Republican tax plan is out, and now the hard work of selling it begins on Capitol Hill. The House Ways and Means Committee will get the first crack at writing a bill, and White House economic advisor Gary Cohn said there's one number the president is not willing to negotiate: a 20% corporate tax rate.
We would have liked to start lower and given ourselves some negotiating room. We are at 20. 20 is a bright line test for us. The president has said it. He said it yesterday, and he's been very clear about it. We are not going over 20. 20 is the top of what we're willing to go on the corporate tax rate.
House Speaker Paul Ryan has said he'd be willing to go as high as the mid-20s in the past, but today he promised that Republicans would hit that target.
When we pulled the border adjustment from our bill back in the middle of the summer, that created a pretty big revenue hole. And we spent the next 3 months rewriting the whole thing, reworking all of the numbers, and making sure that we could get to 20%, which we can, and we're very excited about that.
But Democrats and many experts are slamming this tax plan as a budget-busting giveaway to large corporations and wealthy households. The Center for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that the tax framework would cost $2.2 trillion over the next decade. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi said that alone should raise alarms for Republicans who had long called for fiscal discipline.
I often wonder what happened to the deficit hawks in the Republican Party, because they seem to be an endangered species.
Republicans want to use special rules known as reconciliation to get tax reform done. And to unlock that process, they first need to pass a budget. The House will vote on its version next week, and the Senate will mark up its own proposal as well. Both sides will need to agree to get tax reform off and running. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Ilan Mui in Washington.
Well, the economy accelerated in the second quarter, recording its quickest rate of growth in more than 2 years. Turns out the gross domestic product increased at a rate of 3.1%. That's an annual rate during the April to June period. It was revised slightly higher from the previous report. Economists say the destruction caused by Hurricanes Harvey and Irma could be a drag, though, here on the third quarter growth.
And Bill, those recent hurricanes showed up in the weekly jobless claims report. The number of Americans applying for benefits rose more than expected last week, at least partially reflecting job losses due to Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. The figures show claims fell last week in Puerto Rico, but the full impact is unclear because Hurricane Maria disrupted the collection of data.
The Trump administration is temporarily waiving a century-old shipping law that says all shipments between 2 U.S. ports must be carried on U.S. flag vessels. Some say that could facilitate relief efforts in Puerto Rico in the wake of Hurricane Maria. But on the storm-battered island itself, a lot of supplies have arrived, but it has proven very difficult to get them where they need to go. Our Contessa Brewer is in San Juan for us tonight.
Giant ships are waiting in line with more than 1,000 cargo containers aboard, loaded with supplies. But look around. There's no room to unpack them from the ships and put them in the terminal yards. They are packed with life-saving supplies, but those supplies are not getting to the people who desperately need them.
The people of Puerto Rico are fighting hard, but there's no way we're going to be able to do this by ourselves. We need much more support from the federal agencies right now.
The vice president for Crowley, one of the biggest shippers in Puerto Rico, is frustrated. His yard is jammed, way over capacity, with more ships waiting to unload.
We also asked the distributors and the trucking company that in a way that it is possible to please come and start moving the cargo here, because we need to make room in order to receive the cargo that is on its way.
But trucking companies can't contact their drivers because cell service is out to most of the island. Drivers can't get to work because they can't find gas for their cars, or roads are blocked by debris. And if they can get to work, they still need diesel to operate the delivery trucks. Down here on the ground, the trucks are moving, but only 4% of the containers are making it off the lot. These are all refrigerated units. They require generators. Every one of these generators requires fuel. Inside is food and medicine, crucial for the island, and Crowley is going through 4,000 gallons of fuel every single day for these operations at the terminal. Diesel is the crucial link in the supply chain. The Food and Beverage Association said 266 supermarkets are ready to open, but don't have the diesel to run their generators. Walmart, Supermercado Econo, a huge supermarket chain here, and V. Suarez, a food distributor, are trying to figure out how to get hundreds of containers out of these yards to the stores. FEMA has been making emergency fuel deliveries a priority, but gas stations can only stay open for a few hours because of demand, despite fuel rationing. The airport needs fuel because generators are powering air traffic control, TSA security checkpoints, and computers for the airline agents. For many of those on this island, food is running short. Half the homes on the island don't have running water, much less electricity. And in some cases, lives are on the line. These people are your family. These people are your neighbors. I know that you're so concerned about what's happening in other parts of Puerto Rico. When you look out over this crowded yard, does this make you mad?
It makes me sad and frustrated. Just to see that we have here all these goods and that people out there are just begging, anxious, in the need of such important supplies, and they are all sitting here in this yard.
FEMA Administrator Brock Long says his agency is working with the Department of Defense, with the governor of Puerto Rico, and the mayors and other agencies on logistics. But right now, this is a supply chain that is broken and desperately in need of repair. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Contessa Brewer in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
And Southwest Airlines expects to lose $100 million in revenue in the third quarter because of the recent hurricanes and also the earthquakes. In a filing with the SEC, the airline said it had to cancel approximately 5,000 flights during the current quarter because of the natural disasters in the Caribbean and also in the U.S. And it's not just Southwest. Bob Pisani has more from the New York Stock Exchange.
Companies are starting to crunch the numbers in the wake of Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria. So today, Southwest Airlines and Sherwin-Williams both said revenues would be lower in the third quarter. They join a growing list of companies affected in one way or another by the storms. So FedEx, CarMax, AutoZone, D.R. Horton all mention operations took a hit from the storms, along with Marriott, Gap, as well as Newell Brands. Harvey alone may have caused up to $108 billion in damages. That's according to initial estimates from Moody Analytics. A recent CNBC analysis revealed that all the big hurricanes live on in earnings commentary for several quarters following their landfall in the U.S. So are the warnings enough to materially affect S&P 500 earnings for the third and the fourth quarter? It's not entirely clear yet, though some industries like airlines may see a more substantial impact. But right now, it seems to be somewhat minimal overall. Of course, we're still waiting for insurers to shed more light on their losses, and we'll probably get comments from retailers and other airlines, so this could change. But the preliminary data is a relief to market watchers. S&P earnings have been on an upswing since the fourth quarter of 2016 after a year and a half of declines. So the markets have remained in record territory largely because traders continue to believe that earnings are still growing and not at a peak. A strong economy coupled with the prospects of tax cuts are the key to earnings growth in 2018. So some think the rebuilding efforts may now provide an additional benefit. Edmunds, which tracks car sales, for example, said they expect to see an incremental boost in vehicle sales in September and a lift in the overall auto markets in the months to come. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange.
The new interim CEO at Equifax apologized to consumers for the poor response by his company to the data breach that affected 143 million Americans. In an op-ed that ran in the Wall Street Journal this morning, he acknowledged that Equifax compounded the problem with insufficient support for consumers. So now Equifax is offering a new service allowing people the option of locking and unlocking access to their Equifax credit files at will, and importantly, this new service will be offered free of charge for life.
And we told you what the experts recommend you should do if you suspect your data has been breached and what small business owners should do. But what about retirees? Reed Frassa, financial planner at Highland Financial Advisors, joins us and has some special tips on that. Good to see you again, Reed.
Good to see you, Sue. Thank you.
We've talked on this program about the credit freeze, about getting a monitoring agency, but retirees are in kind of a different category in that they are getting payments from the government on a routine basis, things like that. What should retirees be thinking about at this point?
Yeah, well, retirees are extremely vulnerable. They're typically not as computer savvy. Many of them have gotten involved with Facebook and emailing their families and things like this, and they're just not as familiar with some of the protocol to follow. So we educate our clients on this, but the main thing is that the protection that you have is really with you. I mean, you have the power in you to protect you from outside by being very suspicious of contact through emails. Phishing is a very common type. So when you get an email from a company, it looks like it came from a company you may do business with. They typically don't reach out to you asking you for information. Phone calls, another type of phishing that comes to people, seniors, telling them that there's been a security breach. They say they're from Apple or Microsoft, and we're investigating in your neighborhood.
Right.
Things like this. They don't do that. People need to be very shrewd about using this. Another thing is, yes, Bill.
I'm sorry, but we just showed a graphic here that said limit the use of your Social Security number. For example, you say don't give it to medical providers. I know that often all they want is your birth date. That's very important. But sometimes they do ask for that Social Security number. Why not give it to them?
Yeah, they need your birth date typically and your medical ID to look up to contact the insurance company. Many of them, I wonder if they just haven't updated their forms today. Many times I do not give it. My Social Security number. If they really need it, you'll ask for it and they can explain it. But it seems like that's one area where our Social Security number, we just never thought about it and we give it out. But it's not something that I think you should be as free to do anymore.
As I mentioned earlier, frequently seniors and retirees get payments, Social Security payments, Medicare payments. I would assume that they should really monitor and make sure that those payments are coming in as they normally do. And if they're not, maybe that means that someone else has gotten access to them. So Medicare and Social Security seem to be two things that seniors should take a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just monitoring your bank accounts. Most financial institutions today have put in two-factor authentication, which is an extra layer of protection. If you have a cell phone, they'll text you a code before you log on. You really need to take advantage of that and use that because it's an important extra layer of protection. That way it's very hard for somebody to go and change your address. Social Security has administration there online is extremely difficult for someone to break in. But these are things that consumers need to be aware of. And seniors, as they explore the internet and things like this, they need to be extremely shrewd.
Okay. On that note, Reed, nice to see you again.
You too. Thank you.
Reed Frassa with Highland Financial Advisors. Bill?
Still ahead, teens, an app, and playing the stock market. Is that a good combination? Twitter said today that it found about 200 accounts linked to Russian-backed Facebook pages that sought to spread misinformation. During a meeting with congressional investigators, the company said that Russian-backed news site RT spent more than $270,000 on ads last year during the election. Twitter plans to review its political advertising disclosure policy, and it will crack down on any future suspicious activity.
Sin stocks, they're in sectors whose activities are frowned upon by some. But this time of year, are they just what your portfolio needs? Landon Dowdy shines a spotlight on that sector.
So-called sin stocks like alcohol, cigarettes, and gaming stocks typically heat up as the weather cools down. And looking back since 2010, analytics firm Kensho points to these names to watch as we approach year-end. Corona and Casa Noble tequila maker Constellation Brands posting average fourth quarter returns of 12.5%. Booze really buzzes this time of year.
It tends to be a time of gift giving and other holiday events. Normally there's an aspect of conspicuous consumption here where people are buying gifts of brands that they think are higher value or perceived to be higher quality. And it tends to be a good season, especially for spirits and wine makers because of that.
Also on tap, Boston Beer Company posting average returns of nearly 20%. Meanwhile, analysts credit China's Golden Week holiday in October with driving strong traffic to Macau, helping boost gaming stocks. One beneficiary, MGM Resorts, posting returns of 13%. Las Vegas Sands also seeing big gains, up more than 9%. And if tobacco is your thing, cigarette maker Reynolds American lighting it up with an average return of 8% in Q4. The general view here is portfolio managers want to move into less risky assets at the end of the year, and cigarette makers are often coveted by dividend investors. So as we head into the final quarter, these Vice stocks can keep you warm all winter long. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Landon Dowdy.
BlackBerry's push into software picks up momentum, and that is where we begin tonight's Market Focus. The tech company's profit and sales topped expectations thanks to strength in its software and its services businesses. As the company transitions from hardware to software-related endeavors, the CEO said that he expects bumps along the way, but he's still optimistic.
In Q4, we also had a good quarter. As I said at that time, we expect to see, more good quarters than bad. I think this is not a straight line up. I want to be, cautious of that. But we are building some very solid fundamentals in the business. We're coming around. We've become a good software company and good earnings.
Shares of BlackBerry higher by 13% today to $10.47. Meanwhile, video streaming company Roku began trading on the NASDAQ today after pricing its initial public offering at $14 a share. That was at the high end of the expected price range, and that pricing values Roku at nearly $1.5 billion. Shares, though, took off in their debut. Look at that, up 67%, closing at $23.50. But a drop in pharmacy transactions caused same-store sales and revenue to disappoint at Rite Aid. The retail chain did report a stronger profit, but that was thanks to a one-time fee the company received following its failed merger with Walgreens. Rite Aid shares fell about 11% to close at $2.03.
Chevron has a new CEO. The energy giant said Michael Wirth will become chairman and chief executive early next year, replacing John Watson, who is retiring. Wirth previously ran Chevron's pipeline and chemicals businesses. Chevron shares rose 17 cents to $117.62. After the bell, KB Home said higher average selling prices helped its results, which topped estimates. During the period, the builder also delivered more homes than Wall Street was expecting. Shares initially rose in after-hours trading and also finished the regular session up almost 3% to $22.22.
The startup brokerage Stockpile is bringing fractional share investing mainstream and hopes it can persuade teens and millennials to buy pieces of big-name stocks in more than 1,000 companies and funds by opening an online account or using the company's app. Avi Lele, the CEO of Stockpile, joins us now to tell us why he thinks this is a good idea, because you run the company. So I'm buying pieces of shares, but you do it, you can buy a card that you can give to somebody as a gift with fractional shares on it, or you open an online account with your company. Is that how that works?
That's exactly right. You can wait till grandma or your favorite aunt or uncle gives you a stockpile gift card. These are good for Nike or Tesla stock, for example. Or you can just come into our brokerage and open an account in about 3 minutes. It's a free account, and you can start buying fractional shares of stock. And the whole idea is, when you're young, you're told start investing early. You can't time the market, but if you start investing early, you've got a very good shot, especially if you diversify and if you do this regularly over time, to build some very serious wealth. The problem is that when you want to start early, you don't have the knowledge or the money to do it. And so what we've done is broken down those barriers and made it possible for you to buy pieces of stock, fractions of stock, so that even though Amazon is $1,000 a share right now, you can come in and buy $100 for and buy 1/10 of a share, or even less.
It's obviously targeted, at least in part, to people who have perhaps not been able to participate, as you just mentioned, in the market, but also millennials who have been a little bit stock averse in the past. But how does it? Is it linked to a regular brokerage account? Because you have to be 18 to open that. So do you have access to the Fidelities of the world and the Vanguards in the world and the like, or not? Just explain how that works.
It's more than just linked to a brokerage. We are a brokerage. So we are an SEC and FINRA registered brokerage. And we're just like a mini Fidelity or E-Trade. And so you can come in and open a brokerage account just like you would any place else. We've just made the process really simple and streamlined so that you can get it done in 3 minutes and then start purchasing your stock that very day. It's a very engaging experience. I'll show you what my daughter's account looks like. If you can see that, you'll see it's a very visual experience. And she owns stocks that she kind of knows something about. Nike, Tesla, Alphabet, Facebook. And so she put in that's right. She put in $25 in each of 6 stocks, and she's got a horse race going, and she's kind of asking me, why is Disney down, and how come Tesla is doing so well? And so it opens up all kinds of great conversations.
Once they've got money in the market, then they start paying attention, that's for sure. Avi Lele,
they have skin in the game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much.
You bet.
Coming up, want to take a sneak peek inside the most expensive home in America? Well, look no further. We'll take you there.
The number of millionaires on the planet is now at a record. According to Capgemini, there are now 16.5 million high net worth individuals around the world, thanks primarily to a rising stock market. The world's wealthiest people collectively hold now more than $63 trillion in wealth, and they are on track to exceed $100 trillion by the year 2025.
And you'd have to be very wealthy to purchase the largest and most expensive home ever listed in this country. The house is in Los Angeles' Bel Air neighborhood, and our Robert Frank takes us on an exclusive tour.
If this super modern ultra luxe smart house looks too incredible to be real, that's because it's not yet. This is an animated rendering of what's expected to be the largest and most expensive mansion in the entire country, a mind-boggling 100,000 square feet, at the record-shattering asking price of $500 million. It's an estate so unique, it's been dubbed The One. And this is what it looks like today.
I don't care who you are or how much money you have, you can never build this house again.
Super developer Niall Naomi showed us around the prime Bel Air property where The One has steadily been taking shape since 2013. And it's possibly the most desirable site for a home on the planet. And our cameras are the only ones that have been allowed in.
Is this the best view in all of Los Angeles?
For sure, yes. In one eye line, you have from downtown LA to the ocean to the Getty. This is the best.
But the breathtaking views are just about the only thing that come naturally here. The rest is being built from the ground up with top-of-the-line materials, including a virtual mountain's worth of marble, When it's complete in 2018, this mammoth structure will include a glass-encased library, 4-lane bowling alley, 40-seat movie theater, an indoor-outdoor nightclub, and of course, a room full of jellyfish, illuminated by blacklight, because why not? Speaking of one-of-a-kind water features, the gorgeous grounds will include 4 infinity pools with built-in conversation pods, plus the largest indoor pool in California, and a moat that circles the entire 4-acre property.
We are standing in the moat.
It'll feel like the house is floating on water.
The only question, who will be the one to write the record-breaking check for this colossal estate?
I think that there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money. They want something that no one else can have. This is it.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Robert Frank in Los Angeles.
And from one mansion to the owner of another very famous one, in case you hadn't heard, Hugh Hefner, the man who built the Playboy entertainment empire, died yesterday at his home, the Playboy Mansion. He was 91. Hef was a controversial figure, to be sure, but one who was inseparable from the brand that he created. He founded his company back in 1953 with $600 of his own money and built the magazine into a multi-million-dollar corporation.
And that is Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow.